Are you brave enough to confront the supernatural? Paranormal M invites you to delve into the mysteries that defy explanation. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to stay updated on the latest spine-chilling tales. Poster Fire, the Bot Hell House. Spring 2014. Not that many poltergeist survivors can say that they witnessed seeing a poltergeist flee the scene of a crime. By crime, I mean arson. Well, I can. On one of the most horrifying events I faced while living in the Bot Hell home was the day the poster caught fire in my office. Recap. Tina and I had witnessed a lot of activity in the weeks leading up to the poster catching fire. I'm talking about bar stools being thrown. Our bedroom light was going off and turned back on by itself in the middle of our sleeping. Loud bangs, loud footsteps, door slams, and yes, one Bible catching fire. All of that happened within a week of the story I'm about to tell you. The advice given to us by friends and family was to smudge the house. The internet said the same thing. Smudging lessens the activity, quote unquote. But let me tell you, smudging never lessened the activity. Not in our house. It made it worse. This story is proof of that, in fact. The night before the poster caught fire, I asked Tina if she would feel comfortable smudging the house. Tina's an excellent smudge person. Tina's more thorough, you could say, than me. She smudges every nook and cranny. The next day, we woke up and got ourselves ready for work. Nothing unusual about that, except the house was still smelling like burnt sage, which I thought was good. Your house should smell like sage if you smudged the night before. I later found out that smudging before going to bed is dangerous, extremely dangerous. I compared smudging before going to bed to kicking an open fire ant house bed before having a picnic. Tina and I got up that morning, and we did what we always do. We got ready for work. The feeling of being watched is lessened. 30-odd minutes later of us waking up, Tina walks up to me and kisses me goodbye. Now it's just me in the house. The only thing on my mind now is beating Seattle traffic. I gotta get out of this house and get to work. A few minutes after I stepped into the shower, it happened. The devil arrived. Every fire alarm in the house starts going off. I'm standing in the doorway of my bathroom, half dried off, thinking, oh shit, it is happening. I knew right then that something was up. I didn't know what specifically, not yet anyway. Something's up though, and it's not good. I remember running through the master bedroom and reaching our bedroom doorway, and that's when I saw it. I feel a large mass run right by me. I can't see what ran past me. I can only feel it, and it was huge, taller than me and wider than me. All I could hear besides the fire alarms going off was this loud stomping sound. My eyes and ears turned toward the direction of the stomping noise and followed it downstairs, and suddenly, the front of the house opens wide and slams shut. That is it. The door just opens wide on its own and slams shut. That's when my brain says, "Give chase, Keith, give chase." I'm thinking, give chase to what? I still haven't determined if someone was even in the house. I haven't even seen anything. The door just opened and closed on its own. What am I chasing? So, I do what my brain says. I run down the stairs and reach the front door. I should be able to get a good glimpse of the intruder as he's leaving the house. I throw my hand on the front doorknob and nothing happens. The front door does not open. Correction, though. The front door doesn't budge, not even a centimeter. I must have fought with the doorknob for about 2 seconds before realizing that I had a fire to deal with. Smoke is billowing from my office upstairs. I run to my office and there it is, ladies and gentlemen. There is a fire. The wall behind my computer desk is on fire. The poster specifically. How many seconds could have transpired between the fire alarm going off and where I'm standing now? Maybe 30 seconds? The first thing I do is kill the fire and toss my damp towel over it. The fire didn't put up a fight, it was just gone. I turn up and run downstairs again. The house is filled with smoke. I get to the front door and try to open the front door again. Nothing. The door will not budge. This is the same door I saw open less than a minute ago. The doorway felt like it had been welded shut. The fire alarms are still wailing in the background. I can taste the chemicals from my burnt poster in my mouth and nostrils. And that's when it dawned on me. The house is not the one under attack. I am. Think carefully about it, Keith. The next few decisions could be your last. What are you going to do? I was in shock at this strange stage, because I remember the events vaguely at this point. Suddenly I'm on the phone with the 911 operator. I'm screaming at her that the house is on fire, and she's maintaining her level of professionalism in the process, asking me in a calm voice, "What's the address?" Every time I utter my address through the phone, enormous amounts of static break out. I'm talking about loud electrical interference, not just static. We go through this, "I can't hear you, can you repeat the address?" routine for about 30 seconds. Finally, she gets my address, and in doing so, lets me know that the fire department's on the way. I hang up and call Tina. Thank God she answers. Tina can hear the fire alarm screaming through the phone. I blurt out for her to come back home. Come back home. The house is under attack, and I hang up. The front door, for reasons I can't explain, finally opened. It opened within seconds of the fire department arriving. How ironic. The firemen dart in and, at my urging, proceed up toward the office. They said I did a good job putting the poster fire out. Tina runs into the house a minute after they arrived and grabs me. I was half naked and shaking like a leaf because all I could remember was Tina throwing blankets over me. I'm shivering and shaking like a wet puppy. I'm not afraid to admit that I was crying and quivering like a baby, too. You would have thought somebody had doused me in a tub of ice water, cubes and all. That's how cold I was. The fire department never could determine what caused the fire. Tina and I knew. This is the second fire incident that we've experienced. Note, there will be 2 more fire incidents in that house in the coming weeks. When the fire department left, all Tina and I had now was each other. The demons who did this are still here, snickering at us. Whatever ran past me in the upstairs hallway had to have been the ringleader. I'll always remember what I felt as it ran past me. Evil, diabolical evil. Neither of us could think of a solution to our problem at all. The only thing left to do now is to contact the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church that up to this point has been ignoring us, giving us the runaround. That's the only logical thing to do now, right? Who else can help us? Tina and I looked at each other and reached the same conclusion. We're marching down to the local parish office, and we are not leaving until somebody sees us. Ghost called cousin by name. This incident happened a few years ago. Let me explain the backstory, which might be the reason for what happened. So my mom's brother, along with his wife and 2 children, moved into a rented house a few years ago, and they've already moved out because of obvious reasons. Someone had died in that house of unknown reason a few months back, and they moved in. And one of my uncle's friends died of cardiac arrest while asleep a month after that. So that day, well actually the night, me and my 2 cousins were playing video games late night in the same room my uncle's friend died in, and in the same bed. The lights were turned off, and it was around 12 a.m. when I heard someone say, "Rachel." The voice sounded like a middle-aged male and had a serious tone to it. That's my cousin's name, and I thought I was hallucinating as I was sleepy, but then I see both of my cousins looking at each other. Both of them heard the voice as well, Rachel went to the door and to the backyard and didn't see anybody. We told our parents about this, and the next time, they didn't believe us either. A few months later, my cousin heard scary female voices, footsteps and thuds to the door and window while he was home alone. I've always been curious about this, and finally found the subreddit where apparently I could find answers. Just had a genuinely spooky moment at an old Cold War bunker. This place is not known to be haunted, nor are there any deaths associated with it, as far as I know. It's open to the public and maintained, so not an oozy, cold, and dark ruin. I was standing in a hallway outside of a Telephony museum room, and my friends were still poking around inside. I was looking at a blueprint map of the facility. In the wall opposite the door to the room where the fluorescent light above me just went off. None of the many other lights in the corridor were out. Every one of them were working fine. I chalked that down to maybe a random failure. A few moments later, most of my friends exited the museum room, but one stopped at the doorway, noticing a hole in the floor beside the door, and suggested I come and take a look. So I re-entered the room to investigate it with him. The door closed behind me and we were alone. Just as we were about to peer down the hole, a woman's scream came from behind us, in the corner of the room that was filled with old 50s and 60s technology and floor-to-ceiling high cabinets full of wires. Nowhere for anyone to hide. All fully lit, so no dark spaces. We both head toward the scream, both looked round toward the source at the same time. Now there was a video running on TV explaining the uses of the tech in the room, a typical monotone instructional archive type of deal. But I cannot see why they have a random scream in a portion of the video that was explaining how the telephones worked. In other rooms, they do show films of old public information reels. There is some screaming in those, but you can't hear them outside of their designated areas, and certainly not in the room we were in. I've been to this bunker twice before and never heard the scream, nor had a light wink out above me. This did freak us out a bit. The rest of the group didn't really think much of it as we explained what we had experienced, and the friend that was with me does not entertain any notion of ghosts or spirits or anything like that. Hatman, window, and curtain appear as shadow in TV. So this just happened tonight. I can't find an explanation anywhere. My fiancé and I were watching TV and shadows started appearing in the TV screen. At first, nothing distinguishable. It just looked like a backlight going out. Eventually, it's a very obvious silhouette of a person. I paused the TV at a scene where the screen was totally black. In the TV, there's a shadow image of a human from the waist up, wearing a fedora. You can see the coach behind them as if they're sitting on it. To their right is our window, and the window curtain. In the shadow, the curtain is pulled all the way to one side. Our curtain is currently drawn, closed. I tried changing what we were watching, but it remained. Both of us saw the exact same thing, so this wasn't one of us seeing stuff. I then turned off the TV, turned it back on, and the image was gone. But the Roku was flickering between the menu and the TV, showing no signal. I restarted the Roku, then everything went back to normal. I saw the cloaked shadow person once as a child, but that was over 30 years ago and in a different house. She never has. The difference here that's freaking me out is I didn't see them directly, but as a burned-out blacklight type image in the TV screen that disappeared after I power cycled the TV and Roku. My experience from about 12 years ago. Anyways, the first night something strange happened was after my surgery around August, as I was about to enter 5th grade. I get home and I was about to go to bed with my parents, and they ask me if I can walk up the stairs, and I say no, so I struggle. But honestly, it was just because I prefer sleeping on the floor than the actual bed, and I still do. Around maybe 3 or 4 in the morning, I randomly woke up, and I hear a laughter coming towards a closet. I kind of was hoping it was one of my mom's Halloween decorations, going off maybe because my mom was obsessed with Halloween and had a bunch of decorations. But I'd say maybe like 5 minutes later I hear some scratching on the couch directly behind me. Then my dad walks down maybe about 30 minutes later to get ready for work, and I tell him what happened, just for him to search the house and find nothing. Things go on for months, and it's always little things like seeing shadows as I'm in the shower, things like that. There was also this one time where I was hanging off the ladder at the top bunk upside down, and that was some scary thing to wake up to. Another time when I'm asleep, I wake up to me basically punching myself, or punching a shelf. It's hard to discern. Me punching the shelf I can understand as maybe being an involuntary movement, but hanging upside down from my bunk bed seems pretty hard to do, and that was also the only time that it's happened to me. I'm not entirely sure if these 2 instances really had anything to do with what I experienced, but when it happened, it just felt super strange to me. Okay, so now the last thing to ever happen to me, or at least last thing I noticed, was the most strangest thing to happen to me in my entire life. I can't really remember around when it happened, but basically I'm lying down in my bed, and as I'm trying to sleep, all of a sudden my vision goes black. I was confused and scared, thinking I went blind as I knew my eyes were wide open. And then about 10 seconds later, my vision basically turned into something like infrared vision. The whole room was blue except for a guy who looked like they were sitting down on a box in my closet. The door was closed and I wanted to get up to open my door, or at least make a run for downstairs. People have told me that it couldn't have been sleep paralysis, but I had full control over my body, so to me, definitely agree with them that it doesn't make sense. I was just too scared to do anything, so I pretended to be asleep, and after maybe 10 minutes later, my vision just went back to normal. Playful spirits at my old workplace. I used to work at a retail pet store. Many people don't like that I sell purebred puppies. I worked in the kennel area taking care of the puppies every day, feeding and grooming them, giving them medicine and weighing them and taking temperatures, the whole 9 yards. I'd heard before from one of my managers that a couple playful spirits roamed the building, especially whenever it was quiet, like after closing or in the morning before customers arrived. Occasionally things falling off shelves when they were pushed against the back wall, a pen that kept falling out of the pencil holder, and giggling when no one was around were the stories that I'd been told. A couple of weeks after hearing about this, I had my first paranormal experience in the store. And I want to preface this by saying the way the store is built. The kennels for the puppies are built into a long wall that divides the retail section of the store from the work area. I was closing up the kennel area and I was about to take out the trash, and I saw a man standing in the retail section of the store, looking into one of the kennels, looking at a corgi and a Shiba Inu that we had at the time, who were playing. I was thinking that it was my manager. I pushed through the doors into the main area, and I went to go ask him a question about my shifts, and he's gone. I look across the room and he's down the hall in the office, and there's no one else in the store besides my coworkers who had been in the back with me, and the cashier who was also in the office. I asked my manager if he had just been looking at the puppies, and he said no. Throughout the rest of my time there, I heard giggling and I saw a few running across the floor, but no one was walking through a curtain, and a human shape was visibly underneath the curtain as it passed through, and I had a pen cap fly off the table as soon as I set it down. Definitely not the worst part of the job. That was actually one of the only perks, actually. Fuck that job, it was terrible. not too sure how to feel about this. Myself and my partner were chilling together in our room. I was playing some PS5 whilst she was replying to voice notes. Then suddenly, we both hear a really loud booming TV sound coming through the wall. Initially, for about an hour, we thought it was our neighbors. However, I then went to grab a snack from downstairs and the sound became much louder, and I realized the sound was coming from inside the house, more specifically in my mom's room. Trouble is, my mom hasn't been home for a few weeks as she's been away looking after a family member, and we're the only ones in the house. So essentially, the TV turned on, changed volume, and changed channel on its own. I should mention, it only changed channel when I walked into the room. Also, as I'm writing this, I heard a massive bang directly below us, which was loud enough to make me jump out of my skin. I've gone downstairs and investigated every inch of the house, and there's no one here. I even checked the shed outside. The only thing of note that I found was pliers outside on the back door. However, these belonged to us. I checked out the front as I expected there maybe to be somebody there, but nobody. In terms of the TV, it's pretty old. It's not capable of an internet connection and the remote has to be directly pointed at it in order to operate the TV, which it wasn't when we found on my mom's pillow. I can only assume the TV's potentially becoming faulty in its old age, but still, it's pretty eerie. Trapped in a haunted house. Me and my girlfriend like to go on midnight drives. We were driving our usual routes down some country roads when we passed 3 oddly large, sharp turn signs, where my girlfriend said, "Wait, there was a road there, let's go down it." Because there was nobody out at this time, I was able to reverse back and go onto this road, and it was exactly 2:22 a.m. It was one of those narrow farm roads. It seems to go on forever. When we finally got out into the main road, we saw some eerie orange streetlights. The town name sign was a lot more bold than others. Something about it made us feel uneasy. Upon entering the town, we laughed about how creepy it looked, all empty with orange streetlights. Suddenly, as we're driving through at around 15 miles an hour, we hear what sounded like a knock at the bottom of the car. It definitely wasn't just a rock or a stick bouncing off the car. It was a distinct knock. We sped out of town, soon again laughing it off. However, little did we know that wasn't the last time that we'd see this creepy town. We attempted to get away from it to go back to our usual route, but we soon realized that no matter which way we turned, it led us right back into the town, and every single time driving past the same exact place. And we always heard that knock. We must have drove through the town at least 6 times before we managed to get out. When we finally got back home, the first thing I did was Google the town. To our horror, the official Wikipedia page of this town states that the town is haunted by 4 ghosts. The strange thing is we've never seen that town before. We haven't seen it on any of the street signs. Yet now, every time we go on our usual country roads, we see it on every sign, almost like we unlocked a new area in a game. We've basically gone back a couple times since, but now it seems a lot more lively and normal, even at night. We've also tried to find the farm road that first led us to it. It's been a few months since all of it happened, yet we still can't find that farm road. It's like it disappeared. There's a man who took care of me, and he's back. What do I do? So ever since I was a baby, there's been a man protecting me, but this man isn't really human, if that makes sense. I don't know if he's a ghost, a demon. All I know is he's protecting me. The first appearance of this man was when I was just a baby. My parents were having a party. Parents downstairs in the backyard drinking. Kids and teens are upstairs in the living room on their phones or playing video games or with toys. Me, the baby, is currently in my crib, alone in the dark door. A lady was going upstairs to use the bathroom. My mom asks if she will check up on me, and the lady said that she would. For some context, this lady was sober and didn't like alcohol, so she goes upstairs checking on me first. Upon opening the door, she notices a dark figure of a man standing over my crib, watching me as I sleep. The lady closed the door and ran downstairs to alert everybody. My dad and Tios are running upstairs to get me as fast as possible. Upon entering the room, he's gone. Not a trace of anybody being in the room. The adults ask the kids, and they all say that nobody had been upstairs other than for them and some people using the bathroom. From then on, everybody kind of left and just ended the party. This wouldn't be the last time I'd see him, though. I remember this story very vividly. I was around the age of 4, and while running upstairs, I busted my head so hard my skin gashed open, gushing out strong amounts of blood. And that's when I saw him. He looked to me and to my older brother and waved his arms in front of him. With no avail of getting up, he turned and he goes to me and helps me up, and I'm able to get my brother's attention. Later, I wake up in the hospital. I didn't mention the man to anybody. After reviewing, I ended up with a small stitch on my head. The doctor found it a surprise that I only had such a small scar, and from then on, I wouldn't see the man in real life for another 2 years. I'm 6, and I'm walking across the street. As I'm walking, a car comes out of nowhere and it's about to hit me. Before the car can hit me, there he is again, the man standing in front of the car, as if stopping it somehow. I was interrogated by the police as the person was speeding, didn't have a plate on his car, and almost hit me. I tell them everything, and I don't mention the man. That night and for 3 years, he'd just be in my dreams. Around the age of 9, he stopped even being in my dreams. Having grown a strong emotional connection to him, I was very upset, and I thought that I'd gotten him mad. I thought this because often I was annoying my parents, and maybe that they'd neglect me. So after about 3 years go by, and I've completely forgotten about him. But on the night of June 3rd, he appeared in my dreams. He wrote out a message saying, "What'll happen soon isn't your fault." When I woke up, I was confused of who he was and what he'd been talking about. I mentioned it later at breakfast to my parents, and they went silent. Then they told me about what happened when I was a baby. I began to remember him. At first, I thought he was just an imaginary friend, but when I remembered the scar in the car accident, I got concerned. I just decided to forget about it. It's been 2 years, and I'm 15. And recently my baby cousin mentioned the man and said that he missed me and enjoys seeing me grow up to be such an independent girl. When she said that, it felt like my heart had stopped. I don't know who he is or why he decided to be like that, almost like a parent to me, and just decided to disappear. And I don't understand if my baby cousin's making things up or if she's telling the truth. I don't know what to do. My dear gentleman, my most fondest memory. I've always believed in ghosts, but most of my experiences were feelings or glimpses of shadows, etc. However, I've gotten more sensitive as I've gotten older, but it seems more so since this incident. My ex and I moved into a little flat in our local town. It was a tiny and squalid little building, but we were in our early 20s and it's our first place. We didn't notice anything funny until after my then-fiancé started getting abusive and we both began noticing this strange energy coming from the bathroom. Due to the layout of the flat, You came in the front door to the living room and kitchen, and where we set up our sofa was opposite the bathroom door. So whenever we sat there, we'd get this odd feeling of being watched, and this strange energy. We closed the door and felt fine, but hated using that bathroom. Over time, things would move. The bookcase that we had was pretty solid and heavy, and it just suddenly tipped over. And the odd one was the kettle kept switching on and off, like someone was flicking the button on and off quickly. 9 out of 10 times it would happen when my ex was gone, but one day it started when I was home alone. Usually I didn't feel frightened at all and just thought I'd make a cup of tea. Made 2, set one aside and said, "If you wanted tea, you could just ask for it." From that day onward, the kettle never did the flickering off and on thing again. I only began to feel the scary energy when my ex was home, and as soon as he left, I felt comfortable again. I still sensed him, but not in a negative way, like having a friend or a roommate. I'm not sure why, but I'd start talking to him out loud, just nattering about things, and I learnt about him. Not hearing him per se, but it just came to my head like I already knew it, if that makes any sense. I learned he'd been a soldier in the war and his name was William. The rest of it was just friendly, and I felt such great care and affection from this spirit. I often just referred to him as my old gentleman or lieutenant. My ex, however, referred to him as the Shadow Man or the Dark Entity. A lot of my friends felt the energy, and many non-believers ended up believing in it too, but they didn't seem to get the vibes of friendly or gentleman or evil Shadow Man, just that there was something going on. My ex and I split up, and he ended up moving out for a week, and I'd never lived by myself before, and I thought I'd be terrified more with the spiritual energy, but the whole time I was there, I felt safe and protected, and I hadn't slept so well in years. Unfortunately, I ended up getting kicked out by my ex, and he eventually left the house too, and I regret losing that place, as I greatly miss my old gentleman and think of him often. Since then, I actually did some digging and I learned that in my home, a gentleman did live there until he died in the 70s and 80s. I can't remember the exact age as I searched it up years ago. But he was a former lieutenant in World War I, and he had lived in that building, and his name was William. It reassured me that my memories weren't just a delusion, but it makes me miss the very real connection that we once had. An evil attachment to my mother's remains. I feel like enough time has passed to be able to talk about this. There is a dark, evil attachment to my mom's remains. This evil entity cannot be destroyed, only sealed away. Some may already know what I'm referring to. For those that do not, the entity was a dye book. For those unfamiliar with dye books, they originate from Jewish folklore. It's an entity that was never human. And the longer it's allowed to feed, the stronger it can get to the point where it can kill. Here's some background information. My mom passed away from pancreatic cancer of the liver in early 2018. This was her 5th cancer. Due to where she passed and where she lived, it was cheaper to have her cremated. At the time, I was in the Army, so my sister held on to the remains. After I got out in 2020, I got a place to live. In 2021, my sister and her husband decided to move to Florida to live near his parents due to how they panicked. Or rather, due to how they packed, they were unable to take the remains with them. And so I had to take, for a long time, the writing is inconsistent here. So I had taken them for the time being, since I just lived down the road. At the time, I suspected nothing about the remains. At this time, I had been starting my path as a practicing witch, strengthening my natural abilities. Especially since I could sense spirits but not see them, slowly with practice, I was able to see after images of spirits. In early 2022, I met someone online and started to form a relationship with. In April of that year, I had taken a trip to see how living with them would be. It's when I got back that things went south fast. The night I returned, I was woken up in the middle of the night, and above me was this black mass in the shape of a sphere, dripping darkness. I was terrified. This thing radiated evil. I felt like it wanted to kill me, but it couldn't. The next day I consulted my friend, who's an experienced witch, and she searched for it. The entity tried to hide from her, and when she found it, it attacked her. My friend was able to confirm that it was, in fact, a die book. She found that the die book was attached to my mom's ashes, and that it had been attached to her for a long time. Looking back, it explained so much. And going through my memories, the townhouse that we moved into when we moved to California felt evil. It's where my mom got her first cancer and where I first started having suicidal thoughts. I remember seeing this darkness at the top of the stairs by my room and by my mom's room. I believe since my mom had more negativity around her, the die book attached itself to her. Since she was raising 2 kids, my dad left her for another woman. He also ruined her credit. And ever since that townhouse, we'd been plagued with misfortune and mishaps, some that nearly killed my mom. After my friend discovered what it was, she gave me a chance and a charm for protection, a temporary one until, the thing was dealt with. And I think it was trying to attach itself to me. We planned for a day to seal it. I believed it was a new moon. Due to my friend being a lot more experienced, her and her partner, who was also a practicing witch, took the reins. I can't go into much detail on what was done, but I can say is that my friend lured it out and her partner sealed it away, creating a die book box. My friend reassured me that it was sealed and cannot hurt anybody anymore, even me. The heaviness that was in my apartment was gone. Shortly after the sealing ritual, my sister asked for the ashes back, while I wanted to bury the box so my family could finally be rid of the demon. But because the ashes were sealed away in the box, I had to send it to her. I did warn my sister not to open the box as the die book wanted to attach itself to our family. I don't know what she did with the box, if she unsealed it to retrieve the ashes or not. She hasn't told me. Since then, I also went into, a time of no contact with my sister due to other past issues. So there really isn't a definitive ending to this encounter. His name was Walt. So these experiences I have aren't necessarily mine, but of my parents and older sister, as most of these events happened before I was born. I'm sorry if some of these seem a bit vague on details, but I'm trying to remember as much as I can from the time that I was told these. Some backstory. Walt had lived in our house years prior to us moving in, and he was an electrician and a lover of cats. Both of these are relevant later. And he lived by himself. He loved that house. So when things went wrong, he would fix them, like when the doorbell stopped working. So he went to the basement where the wiring for the doorbell was, and I believe he either had a stroke or a heart attack and fell, hitting his head on the corner table that he had down there, causing him to die. Like I said, he loved that house. He ended up staying after death. Subsequently, every person or family who's moved in after his death would move out around 6 months in, 3 months if he really didn't like them, until my family moved in 1996. I was about to be born the following year. My mom's experience. So my dad was in the Army at the time, and was in for deployment. While my mom was doing dishes, she accidentally damaged her wedding ring, so she put it in a Ziploc bag and placed it in her jewelry box right on top, as she would go to bring it to the jeweler to have it repaired. Come the next morning, and lo and behold, the ring is missing. She completely empties the jewelry box and searches around the room, and it's nowhere to be found. Distraught, but resigned, as there was nothing she could do, a few months pass, and it's getting close for my dad to come home from deployment, and my mom is starting to get worried on what to say to my dad. Then one night my mom's woken up by a strange feeling and hears a man whisper, "Check your jewelry box." Despite feeling doubtful, she checks, and there on top of everything inside is her wedding ring, still in its plastic bag. The next day my mom goes out and notices a new jeweler's shop, and she brings it there because of them being new and they were offering discounted prices to gain new customers. So my mom was able to get the ring fixed and for a cheaper price. My dad's experience. Like I said before, Walt died while trying to fix the doorbell. And all that time, the doorbell was never fixed. So my dad, being the man of the house, tries to fix it, despite not having any experience being an electrician. He takes some tools, a how-to book, and gets right down to it for a few hours. He would call up to my mom to test the doorbell to see if it got fixed, but it wouldn't ring. After some time, the pages on the how-to book began to flip to the page that my dad actually needed. And as he worked, he felt hands on him, guiding him. Till eventually, when he called up to my mom to test the doorbell, she was sort of a humorist at him for the last time. And to both of our surprise, the doorbell worked. When my mom asked how he did it, he told her that he really didn't know what happened, but it felt like he was given help. My mom and dad's experience. When they first moved in, they noticed that some of Walt's belongings were still in the house, so they were able to get in contact with his sister, who lived not too far away. The items being a box of personal items in the master bedroom closet and his Leatherman jacket in the mudroom's closet. They gathered items and placed it by the front door, so when Walt's sister came, she wouldn't have to wait for them to get the stuff. And then they went about their day. When Walt's sister arrived, Walt's stuff was no longer by the front door. They searched the house from top to bottom, and the stuff was in their original locations. Neither one of my parents claimed that they did it, and my sister, who's only 2, so she couldn't have been able to put that box back onto the high shelf in the master bedroom's closet. When my parents explained what had happened to Walt's sister, she told them that was like Walt, and he didn't like people touching his stuff. Also, that he was a bit of a prankster. Also, this is how they found out it was Walt haunting the house this whole time. My sister's experience, and a bit of mine. My sister could see Walt, and she would have conversations with him often. When my parents asked who she was talking to, my sister would reply with, "The nice funny man." Honestly, that's still kinda creepy. At night is when Walt would really make himself known. You would hear footsteps coming up from the stairs with no one there. Cliché, I know. But you would also hear cats yowling despite there being no cats around. And this was because Walt had a bunch of cats when he was alive. Essentially, crazy cat man. When my sisters would hear this, she would jump out of bed so she could play with Walt. One time, Walt didn't like the PJs my mom put on me. I was like less than a year old at the time, and took them off of me and put them to the side. Me being a baby, not liking the sudden cold feeling, started to cry. When my mom came into the room, she saw my sister laughing and asked her what was going on, and my sister replied that Walt didn't like my PJs, so he took them off. Honestly, that horrified my mom, seeing how I was naked, but my sister wouldn't have been able to reach into my crib, as she was too small to do so. And such that would have been the only explanation available. Haunted after deployment. This story happened to me back in 2008. I was a soldier in the U.S. Army, and I had just returned from my first deployment to Iraq. My mom had passed away during the tour, and I was in the process of a divorce, but the unit still made me having a housing off post. I mention these parts because they're relevant to the incident. I was living in an apartment alone and always had what felt like an irrational fear of the bedroom where I kept my bed. Due to this, I usually slept in the living room on the futon. So, one night I finally decided to sleep in the bed. Turned out that fear was more rational than I thought it seemed. Couldn't fall asleep, and then I remember falling out of the bed, but something cushioned my head. Instinctively, I asked if it was my mom. I knew it wasn't here when I felt pressure on my throat and struggled to breathe. Or rather, I knew it wasn't her. I said, "Nope," and I attempted to flee, only to be yanked backwards hard, and next thing I remember sitting upright in my bed, thinking it was a nightmare. I took a breath and laid back, noticing it was around 3 or 4 in the morning, and what I saw next made me freeze, as I saw a dark figure meld into the wall. Needless to say, never slept there again, and I moved out soon after. I felt pretty sore, so I'm unsure if the attack was a nightmare caused by the figure, or if I blacked out and I was just yanked back into the bed somehow. And I would see the figure again when I lived in other places through the years, but usually only when I was living alone and during very stressful times. My true encounters with ghostly presences. It all began when I moved into this old, cozy house in a quiet neighborhood. Little did I know that it held secrets beyond my wildest imagination. From the moment I stepped inside, a peculiar energy enveloped that place, making my skin crawl. Strange things started happening. A flicker of movement from the corner of my eye, unexplained sounds echoing through the halls, and objects seemingly shifting on their own. At first, I dismissed these occurrences as mere figments of my imagination, trying to rationalize them away. But as the days turned into weeks, the activity intensified, leaving me no choice but to confront the inexplicable. Late one eerie night, while lying in bed, the silence broke only by the creaks of the house. I heard it, a whisper, soft and faint, carried by an otherworldly presence. My heart skipped a beat as I strained to catch the words spoken by an unseen entity. Though their voice was barely audible, it seemed to call out my name, echoing with a mix of longing and urgency. Determined to uncover the truth behind these spectral whispers, I delved into the house's history. Countless hours were spent researching, speaking to locals who knew the area well, and poring over dusty archives in search of answers. Slowly, the puzzle pieces fell into place. A former resident who met a tragic end, their spirit lingering in search of resolution. I embarked on a mission to communicate with the unseen entity, to offer solace to their restless souls. Through late-night conversations, I began to understand their pain, the unfinished business that bound them to our world. The encounters continued, growing more intense and tangible. Objects would move of their own accord, doors would slam shut with eerie force, and an icy chill would settle in certain areas of the house. Shadows danced and flickered, seemingly alive with ethereal energy. Though fear gripped me at times, my insatiable curiosity and compassion propelled me forward. I sought the assistance of seasoned paranormal investigators, and together, we explored the depths of the house, armed with various detection devices, hoping to capture evidence of the otherworldly. Our investigations yielded chilling results. Audio recordings that captured disembodied voices, whispers from beyond the veil, and photographs that revealed mysterious orbs of light, their presence defying explanation and sparking wonder. Yet, amidst the chilling encounters, a deep sense of empathy grew within me. I realized that these ghostly beings were not malevolent entities, but remnants of lives once lived. They yearned for acknowledgement and understanding. With careful research and heartfelt conversations, I pieced together fragments of their stories. Each encounter brought me closer to understanding their plan, and helping them find the closure they desperately sought. Now, for all you brave Redditors who wish to venture into the realm of the supernatural, I offer you a ritual, a symbolic gesture of connection with the spirits. Light a white candle in a quiet room, close your eyes, and softly speak words of compassion and understanding. Open your heart and mind to the possibility of their presence, acknowledging their existence with respect and kindness. But let me remind you to approach this ritual with caution and respect. The spirit world is a realm we can never fully comprehend, and it is essential to tread lightly and ensure your own safety. So if you ever find yourself face to face with the unexplained, approach it with an open mind and a compassionate spirit. Within those whispers in the night, you might just catch a glimpse of the profound mysteries that surround us all. As my journey with the supernatural entities unfolded, I couldn't help but wonder if there was a way to help them find peace. I sought advice from experts in spiritual practices and discovered a ritual, an amalgamation of ancient traditions and personal intent, which some believed could provide closure for these restless spirits. With a mix of excitement and trepidation, I gathered the necessary items: a bundle of sage, a small vial of blessed water, and a piece of amethyst said to possess protective properties. Taking a deep breath, I entered the most active area of the house, the room that I had felt had the strongest presence. In the dim light, I lit the bundle of sage, letting the fragrant smoke fill the room. With each waft, I visualized negative energy dissipating and a calming aura enveloping the space. I sprinkled a few drops of blessed water around, symbolizing purification and renewal. As the room became infused with the delicate scent of sage, I held the amethyst in my hand, feeling its cool energy grounding me. With a steady voice, I spoke words of compassion and release, addressing the spirits that resided within the house. I acknowledged their pain, expressed my willingness to help, and offered them the freedom to move on from their earthly attachments. A profound stillness settled in the room, as if the very air held its breath. The sensation of being watched eased, replaced by a sense of serenity. Whether it was the power of the ritual or a shift in the spirit's energy, I may truly never know. But in that moment, I felt a gentle, intangible presence. The weight of unresolved emotions lifted, replaced by subtle gratitude. In the days that followed, the paranormal activity gradually subsided. The once restless spirits seemed to find solace and began to fade into the ethereal realm they belonged to. The house, once fraught with their lingering presence, now felt lighter and more peaceful. Reflecting on my experiences, I realized that the ritual was not a definitive solution for every haunting. Each encounter with the supernatural is unique, and finding resolution may require a diverse range of approaches, but the ritual served as a catalyst, an opportunity for understanding and healing to take place. The Tale of Child Ghosts. In a small, sleepy town, nestled amidst rolling hills, there is a dilapidated Victorian house that stood abandoned at the edge of the woods. Locals whispered tales of its haunting, claiming that the house was home to the spirits of children who had met unfortunate fates long ago. Legend had it that a young family had once resided there, their lives filled with joy and laughter. However, tragedy struck when a devastating fire engulfed the house one fateful night, trapping the innocent children inside. The town mourned their loss, and the charred remains of the house stood as grim reminders of the lives lost too soon. Years passed, and the stories of the child ghosts grew more vivid. People claimed to have seen flickering lights and heard laughter emanating from the house. The town's children would dare each other to approach the eerie place at dusk, exchanging spine-chilling tales of encounters with the departed children. One evening, a curious and brave young girl named Emily decided to unravel the mysteries surrounding the house. She had heard tales of whispers among her friends, and her heart was filled with a mix of fear and compassion for the child spirits said to reside there. Emily ventured into the woods, her footsteps careful and deliberate. As the sun began its descent, casting an orange glow over the landscape, she approached the abandoned Victorian house. The creaking floorboards and the overgrown vines clinging to the walls added to the eerie atmosphere. Emily pushed open the rusted front door. Inside, she found a world frozen in time, a place of forgotten dreams and lost innocence. Cobwebs adorned the corners, and dust danced in the rays of light that filtered through the cracked windows. She explored each room, feeling a peculiar presence, a whispered touch of the past. In a forgotten corner, she stumbled upon an old, worn-out teddy bear, its once vibrant colors faded with time. As she picked it up, a soft giggle echoed through the house, and Emily's fear transformed into warmth and understanding. She realized that the child's spirits had never meant to harm. Instead, they longed for connection, for someone to remember them, and for their stories to be told. Moved by compassion, Emily began visiting the house regularly, bringing fresh flowers to place on the windowsill, playing games with invisible companions, and sharing stories of her adventures with the departed children. Over time, the town started to see the abandoned house with new eyes. No longer a place of dread, it became a symbol of resilience, love, and remembrance. The child ghosts, once restless and unseen, found solace in the presence of Emily and the town's growing appreciation for their memory. As years went by, the town transformed the old Victorian house into a community center, dedicated to honoring the lost children and providing a safe space for the living ones. The laughter of children echoed through its walls once again, filling the house with a sense of joy and healing. And so, the child ghosts found peace, forever etched into the hearts of those who had come to know their stories. Their presence served as a reminder that even in the afterlife, the innocence of childhood endures, and the power of compassion can heal even the most lingering ghosts. The dark history and secrets behind St. Agnes. In the small, secluded town of Greenwood, New Jersey, nestled amidst a dense forest and hidden from the prying eyes of the outside world, stood St. Agnes Church. Its weathered stone walls and towering steeple reached for the heavens, a beacon of faith and solace for the townsfolk. But beyond its tranquil facade, a tale of darkness and mystery was woven into the very fabric of the church's existence. Whispered had long circulated among the townspeople about the eerie secrets that lay dormant within the walls of St. Agnes Church. Legend spoke of an ancient burial ground, forgotten by time, upon which the church had been built. Restless spirits were said to roam the sacred halls, their mournful moans echoing through the silent nights and their ethereal forms glimpsed by those who dared to venture there after dusk. Generations had passed down the stories of the church's twisted past, and among the town's eldest residents, tales of a malevolent clergyman named Reverend Barnabas were shared with hushed tones. Revered as a shepherd of souls by day, Reverend Barnabas had an insidious presence that hid beneath his charismatic exterior. Rumors hinted at his involvement in the occult and unspeakable rituals that defied the teachings of the church. According to the age-old folklore, Reverend Barnabas's descent into darkness had been a gradual one, fueled by an insatiable thirst for forbidden knowledge. The dusty tomes of forgotten lore became his refuge, revealing secrets that were better left concealed. The once pure sanctuary of St. Agnes Church became tainted by his perverse curiosity and unholy experiments. Whispers grew louder about the hidden catacombs beneath the church where Reverend Barnabas conducted his sinister practices away from prying eyes. The townsfolk, gripped by fear and curiosity, dared not speak openly of the horrors they believed lurked beneath their very feet. However, as the moon reached its zenith, they would occasionally catch fleeting glimpses of dimly lit candles flickering in the depths, accompanied by distant echoes of agonized cries and the haunting melodies of an organ that seemed to play itself. One fateful night when the ominous storm shrouded Greenwood in darkness, a courageous group of townsfolk banded together, driven by an unwavering determination to confront the malevolence that gripped their beloved church. They armed themselves with crucifixes, vials of holy water, and flickering candles. Guided by their collective resolve, they descended into the forbidden catacombs, the musty scent of age and decay filling the air. What they encountered in those shadowy depths would forever sear their memories and haunt their dreams. The winding corridors revealed rows upon rows of weathered skeletal remains, meticulously stacked as if in a macabre symphony. The feeble candlelight cast eerie dancing shadows upon the ancient bones, illuminating a chamber that seemed to pulse with an evil presence. At the heart of this haunting tableau stood Reverend Barnabas, his eyes gleaming with malevolence and madness. A chilling silence settled upon the brave souls as they stared into the abyss of the Reverend's twisted creation. With a wicked smile that curdled their blood, he beckoned them forward, daring them to challenge his authority and the foundations of their faith. But bolstered by their unwavering belief, they raised their crosses, invoking prayers of protection, and unleashed vials of blessed water upon the unholy abomination before them. The very air cracked with the force of their collective conviction, repelling the malevolent energies that emanated from Reverend Barnabas. Inch by inch, they forced him back, his form growing increasingly distorted and ethereal, until with a final shriek of defiance he dissipated into the shadows, leaving behind a void of darkness that slowly receded. In the aftermath of their harrowing encounter, the townsfolk emerged from the catacombs, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had just witnessed. With solemn determination, they sealed the entrance of the accursed chambers, entombing the memories of Reverend Barnabas and his blasphemous experiments forever. St. Agnes Church, once tainted by the darkness that had consumed its shepherd, began to heal and reclaim its sanctity. The townspeople, scarred by the horrors that they had faced, dedicated themselves to ensuring that the church remained a sanctuary of light and hope. They scrubbed away the lingering traces of malevolence, replacing them with fresh coats of paint and heartfelt prayers of redemption. Over time, the haunting tales of St. Agnes Church's eerie past transformed into cautionary folklore. Visitors to Greenwood would be regaled with stories of restless spirits that still whispered in the wind and shadows that danced in the moonlight. The townsfolk, ever vigilant, would share accounts of faint organ music that wafted through the night air, a reminder of the evil that had once tainted their beloved place of worship. As the years rolled by, St. Agnes Church became a symbol of resilience, a testament to the power of faith to overcome even the darkest of shadows. The townsfolk, though forever marked by the scars of their encounter, found solace in their collective spirit and the bond forged through their shared struggle. Today, the church stands as a beacon of serenity, its doors open to all who seek comfort and guidance. The echoes of its unsettling past have faded, but not disappeared entirely, leaving behind a subtle reminder of the battles fought and the victory of light over darkness. So should you find yourself wandering the winding streets of Greenwood, drawn to the age-old allure of St. Agnes Church, take a moment to listen. Listen to the whispers of the wind that caresses ancient walls. Listen for the soft murmurs of the past that linger in the breeze. For within those whispered echoes, you may catch a glimpse of the resilience and courage that turned a once accursed church into a testament of hope. A reminder that even in the face of the inexplicable, the light of the human spirit can prevail. Witchcraft. The history of witchcraft is a complex and multifaceted subject that spans centuries and cultures. The origins of witchcraft can be traced back to prehistoric times when early humans developed beliefs in supernatural powers and magic. The story of witchcraft, as it's commonly understood today, begins in the 14th century in Europe. During this time, a series of events and cultural changes set the stage for a widespread fear and persecution of witches. These events included the spread of Christianity and the influence of the Church, the bubonic plague, social unrest, and the development of witch-hunting manuals. With the rise of Christianity, the Church sought to suppress non-Christian practices and beliefs. Pagan traditions, folk magic, and local healers were viewed as threats to the Church's authority and were gradually condemned as heresy. The idea of a pact with the devil and the practice of harmful magic became associated with witches. The bubonic plague, which ravaged Europe in the 14th century, intensified the fear and paranoia surrounding witches. People were desperate to find someone to blame for the devastating effects of the plague, and witches became convenient scapegoats. Accusations of witchcraft often arose in times of crisis or hardship. The publication of various witch-hunting manuals such as Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches, in 1486, played a significant role in fueling the witch hunt hysteria. These books provided detailed instructions on identifying, interrogating, and punishing witches, leading to an increase in witch trials. The witch trials reached their peak during the 16th and 17th centuries, particularly in regions like Germany, France, Scotland, and Salem, Massachusetts. Accusations were often based on superstitious beliefs, rumors, and personal vendettas, or confessions extracted through torture. Witch hunts were conducted by both secular authorities and the Church, resulting in torture, execution, or imprisonment of tens of thousands of people, mostly women. It's important to note that the concept of witchcraft varied across different cultures and time periods. In some cases, individuals accused of witchcraft were believed to possess supernatural powers, while in others, they were seen as practicing malevolent magic or engaging in harmful activities. Over time, as the Age of Enlightenment took hold in the 18th century, beliefs in witchcraft and witch hunting began to decline. The witch trials came to be seen as a dark chapter in history, fueled by superstition, hysteria, and misogyny. Modern interpretations of witchcraft focus more on nature-based spirituality, religious practices, and the empowerment of individuals, and they often are referred to as Wicca or modern witchcraft. In summary, the story of witchcraft and its origins are complex, spanning centuries and influenced by various cultural, social, and religious factors. The fear and persecution of witches during the European witch trials were driven by a combination of religious, societal, and economic factors, leading to the tragic persecution of thousands of individuals accused of witchcraft. As the Enlightenment progressed, scientific advancements and rational thinking began to challenge the prevailing beliefs in witchcraft. Scholars and intellectuals started questioning the validity of witch-hunting practices, and laws against witchcraft were gradually repealed. By the 18th century, witch trials had largely ceased in Europe. However, it's important to note that pockets of witchcraft and persecution continued in some regions. For example, in parts of Africa, Asia, and the Americas, indigenous spiritual practices and beliefs were suppressed by colonial powers who saw them as witchcraft or pagan rituals. These acts of persecution were often tied to the colonization and forced conversion of native populations. In the 19th and 20th centuries, there was a revival of interest in witchcraft and the occult, largely influenced by various cultural and intellectual movements. In the late 19th century, figures such as Helena Blavatsky and Aleister Crowley popularized esoteric practices and helped shape the modern occult movement. In the mid-20th century, the emergence of Wicca, a contemporary pagan religious movement, played a significant role in reshaping public perceptions of witchcraft. Wicca, founded by Gerald Gardner in England during the 1950s, drew inspiration from pre-Christian traditions and witchcraft practices, emphasizing nature worship, ritual magic, and the celebration of divine feminine. Wicca and other forms of modern witchcraft focus on personal empowerment, spiritual connection with nature, and practice of magic. They reject the negative stereotypes associated with historical witchcraft trials and instead embrace a more positive and inclusive approach to spirituality. In recent decades, witchcraft has experienced a surge in popularity, particularly in Western societies. Books, movies, and popular culture have contributed to a broader acceptance and understanding of witchcraft, often depicting it as a symbol of female empowerment and alternative spirituality. It's important to note that modern witchcraft encompasses a wide range of beliefs and practices, and not all individuals who identify as witches adhere to the same set of beliefs. Some witches follow specific traditions like Wicca, while others develop their own unique spiritual paths. In conclusion, the story of witchcraft spans centuries and continues to evolve to this day. From its origins in ancient beliefs and pagan practices, to the persecution and trials of the European witch hunt era, the modern resurgence of witchcraft as a spiritual practice, the history of witchcraft reflects the complexities of human culture, belief systems, and the ongoing search for meaning and empowerment.